Hey Slingers, welcome to another Wordslinger podcast. I am glad to have you here. I'm talking to Keith Wheeler. You're going to love this conversation. We're going to be talking about low content books, YouTube channels, and author assistance. So stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger, and you are in the right place if you know who I am, first of all. If you are a returning and recurring listener of the Wordslinger podcast, if you are new to the Wordslinger podcast, if you are an author, a new author, a wannabe YouTuber, no, let's reframe that, a will-be YouTuber. If you are any of those things, you're in the right place. And also, if you have ever wondered about, thought about, contemplated about getting a virtual assistant or a VA, as we say in the biz, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to be talking about all of that today in this chat with Keith Wheeler. I really enjoyed this. Now, I'm fresh off this. I just came off this chat just a few minutes ago. And this is unusual, actually, because normally there's a gap between recording the interview and me doing what I call the wrapper for the podcast and the episode. But I'm a little pressed for time. I'm trying to get this done kind of on a tighter schedule than usual because there's some things coming up. There's actually a promotion coming up for Author Anchor, which is one of the things we talk about in this episode. I say a promotion. We've got a webinar coming up, and I wanted to make sure you knew about it. Now, there's going to be a link to this in the show notes of this episode, wherever you found it. So it's a Zoom meeting where you can kind of sit in, and you're going to hear from the Author Anchor team, brought to you by BookBrush. BookBrush is the group behind Author Anchor. You're going to hear from some VAs. I think I need to probably check the details, and that probably should have happened before I actually did the stand up here. But I'm looking at it now. It says authors meet author assistants, hire help, and move forward faster. So there you go. That's the title of the talk. You're going to want to join in, and you can ask questions. You'll get lots of great information. You'll get an opportunity to learn more about how to work with a virtual assistant. So that's an appropriate way, a segue, as we say in the business, to this conversation with Keith Wheeler. And there was so much more in this that I found really kind of fascinating. Is stuff I didn't quite, I wasn't quite thinking about when we first set up this call, which was one of the things was the stuff he publishes, his children's books, the low content stuff. He's got a great YouTube channel. He shares some amazing information, and we're going to talk about that as well. So I'm not going to keep you from that any longer. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around at the end for the note at the end, and I will see you there. Hey, it's Kevin Tomlinson here, and I want to talk to you about something that's made a real difference in my work over the years, and that is ProWritingAid. I've been using this for years. It's hands down the best assistive editing tool that I've found. And what I love most is that it works wherever I write. So whether I'm in Scrivener, Microsoft Word, Substack, or anywhere else, ProWritingAid is right there with me. And unlike other tools, I get control over the kind of suggestions it gives me. So there's no rigid rules. It's just smart, actionable feedback that's tailored to my writing. And the best part is that the team behind ProWritingAid actually cares about independent writers and creators. They're focused on helping individual creators like you and me, not just big enterprise customers. And that is unfortunately becoming a kind of rare thing these days. And that's why I'm proud to support them. So if you're serious about leveling up your writing wherever or however you write, go to ProWritingAid.com and use the code KEVIN20 at checkout for 20% off of your subscription. That's ProWritingAid.com, code KEVIN20. And trust me, You'll be glad you did. Well, one thing that I love talking to people who do things that are very similar to what I do, because it means we got instantly a rapport, a way to relate to each other. And that certainly applies to today's guest. I'm talking to Keith Willer, who is an author in himself, which is always my favorite. That's my favorite big accomplishment, Keith. But then, in addition to that, you have a pretty successful YouTube channel where you're talking to authors. You certainly have a bigger audience than this YouTube channel has. My podcast, big audience. My YouTube channel, not so much yet. So we might have to share some secrets on that. But welcome to the Wordslinger podcast, Keith.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Glad to be here.
I'm
Yeah, I
actually.
have the exact opposite. I've got a decent sized YouTube channel, and the podcast is just growing.
I
So
wonder
slightly.
what the deal is with that. I think my podcast grew because I started that early on. Like that was early days
Right.
before you could do this quite so easily on YouTube. YouTube practically was in its infancy when
Right.
I started this show. So maybe that's why the podcast was around at the right time and your YouTube channel was already around at the right time and mine wasn't, maybe that's what it is.
Yep.
Um,
Probably. That's probably what it is.
How about let's talk. We're going to talk about something pretty important to me right now, and that is working with VAs because you're working with a VA and you're working with Author
Right.
Anchor, which is
Hmm.
the full disclosure here is that I'm the chief brand officer for Author Anchor, so I've got lots of ulterior motives for talking to you. But before we get into all that. I do want to talk to you about your books and your career there and the YouTube channel, but let's start with the books. So, what do you write? What kind of books do you actually write?
I have books that are I have children's picture books. I have young adult novels. I obviously because of the YouTube channel, I do have some nonfiction books about writing and getting book reviews and creating puzzle books.
Yeah,
And puzzle books are another type of book that I publish quite a bit.
puzzle books. Like, like, is it the kind of puzzle books that are like word search and that sort of thing, or is it
Yep.
something? Yeah,
Yep. I mean, mine, I do have word searches and Sudokus and things like that.
yeah.
But I came out with a course a few years ago where I was showing people how to create more unique puzzle types, things like the one that everybody likes to say is Hashiwaka Karos. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, they're a little bit less competitive than
Yeah,
word searches and Sudokus and things like that.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's the whole low content book thing, right?
right.
Which
Yeah. Look, and that whole term is just
I
something
know.
that, I mean, somebody just came up with low content books and no content book ideas and that term. And now
Yeah.
I've heard people saying medium content books. And I'm like, what are we talking about? You know?
Yeah, we should come up with a whole new term and then force it on the industry. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
generative
Yeah.
content. That's what it is.
Well, and then now they say, if you write, that's
Yeah.
considered high content books.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay, well, what if I write short stories versus I write epic novels? What's higher content? Like it's like where do you draw that line?
right. You got compounded content books. That's
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something I'm interested in. I've kind of toyed with it, and I had someone approach me. I forget who I was talking with. I think I was talking with Josh from Book Brush about this.
Okay.
That he has an author who is doing coloring books,
Hmm.
which are kind of in that same genre, we'll say.
Right.
And I'm like, one thing I think my readers would be interested in is like a Dan Kotler, because Dan Kotler is my protagonist for my archaeological thrillers, and I could do a coloring book around that character and that theme. I think it would be kind of
Right.
neat.
Or even a diary type book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But how are you getting so I know that a lot so when I left Draft to Digital, they were already kind of cutting down on like a lot of the retailers weren't accepting the truly low content stuff like the
Hmm.
blank workbooks and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
How are you so what are you doing when you're creating that content? Where are you going through?
So like I don't really create low content. The difference between low content and no content, basically the word content just means writing.
Mm,
So no content would be there's no words in it, so
okay.
like line journals and things like that. And that's what, a lot of companies, Ingram Spark, they were shying away from that real quick
Right.
because people were just, they were easier to create. And so they were just putting up,
Thousands of
hundreds,
them.
if not thousands of
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
And so just flooding the market. And puzzle books, if you use a kind of term, would be, I guess, low content, medium content, whatever. But I there are software that you can use, but I actually started just like I started ironically with my children's picture books is just using PowerPoint. Like I just
Yeah.
create them in PowerPoint. And I know we'll talk about the channel later, but I mean, I have
Yeah.
plenty of videos where I show people how to just do it yourself using PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint, you can use Google Slides, whatever.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I started, like the actual creation of it. KDP is one of the platforms that seems to have really embraced the idea of low content books to the point where when you're doing the upload process, there's actually a box that you can check that denotes if it's low content or not. And the way they do it is if it's low content, it doesn't require an ISBN.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, yeah. My hope is that at some point, Amazon and KDP will get on the right track and be like, okay, this low content, no content type books shouldn't be in with books. They should be in with stationery
Oh,
because they're
yeah.
really, if you're searching up, whatever the theme of your book is, if it's about, dogs or whatever, you don't want to someone's is, a customer searching for dog books. You don't want, chances are they're not going to want a dog puzzle book. They're going to want a dog, a book, a children's book about dogs or whatever.
Right.
And so it will help if they do that. I think it'll be a better customer experience, as well as definitely from like the author creator standpoint, there's less competition. I mean, it's a lot harder to compete, with written content about that same topic.
Right. Right. Yeah. Are there things you can do to sort of maybe push it toward that like keywords or something like that push it towards that idea of being a stationary or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can definitely
a little
use,
bit of
different, keyword research and using keywords that make it clear what,
yeah.
that it's a puzzle book or that it's, a journal or whatever. And obviously with the Amazon algorithm, the number one thing is relevancy. And
Yeah.
so the more relevant your keywords are, then the better your chances of standing out anyway. So yeah, you can definitely do that with that as well as categories that you pick, making sure that again that they're relevant as well.
Right. So you mentioned this already. You have an entire YouTube channel. I'm looking at it now. It's Keith Wheeler Books on YouTube. You can go search for
Right.
that, everyone. And you're just crammed full of. I've seen a number of your videos now. I subscribed to you a while back, and you pop up in my feed pretty frequently now. And it is a pretty good set of instructions on kind of how to navigate this environment. Yeah. You talk a lot about KDP. You talk a lot about other aspects of the business. What moved you into YouTube? Like what was the push there?
Uh, there's a friend of both of ours, Dale L. Roberts,
Yeah.
um, and he and I connected. He was one of the channels that I watched, and I'd already been publishing for years, probably about 2 or 3 years. And long story short, after he and I, started, talking a lot, and he was telling me that I I had too much information in my head to not share it with others.
Okay.
And his
That sounds
wife
like
Kelly
Dale.
actually, yeah, and his wife Kelly actually stepped it up and told me that I'm doing a disservice if I don't share it. So I actually a pretty shy person. I don't really like to hear my own voice and things like that. But
Hmm.
I did decide to take their advice and I started the YouTube channel.
Yeah. That's where you and I are different, Keith. I like to hear my own voice. Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That does sound like Dale. Uh, he and I go way back to the earliest days of his channel too, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's full of advice too. He's been on the show a couple of times as well, and I've and vice versa.
Yeah.
So what did you find was sort of the biggest challenge in kicking off this aspect of your business?
The YouTube
Oh,
channel?
yeah.
Um, it was really just uh, getting over. It's kind of very similar to publishing books. It's getting over that initial fear.
Right.
Um, that fear that I'm gonna create this and nobody's gonna like it. Uh, no one's
Yeah.
gonna watch it, or no one's gonna read the book. And at the end of the day, is well, if nobody watches it or no one reads your book, then what is it hurting?
Yeah.
You're not hurting
True.
anybody.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and but it really, and again, similar to books, it's those positive comments or positive book reviews where people are telling me that I'm helping them, that they were able to make a dream come true or whatever, that really push me to continue going. And again, there's so many similarities between and parallels between doing YouTube videos and publishing books.
I've noticed that too. And I think you're right. I think, and another of those is like, there's no harm in creating the content and putting it out there. Like you're
Right.
not, there's no cost to hosting it. And so there's no,
Exactly.
downside just leaving it there to be stumbled upon. And one of my biggest, gripes, honestly, is uh, I've dealt with this for years, way back, even before Draft to Digital, like the authors who, well, I'm not selling on that platform, so I took it down.
Yeah.
And so like the YouTubers, like nobody's watching, so I took those videos down. I don't know if there's a
Yeah, I
harm or
mean,
not.
Yeah, I mean, as long as what it is, whether it's a book or a YouTube video, as long as it's still valid content,
Yeah.
as long as and it's even decent. Because I'll be honest, when it comes to publishing books, the very first children's book I ever published, it took me almost 20 years to publish it.
Wow.
And because I was waiting for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I learned that, as a creator, we're artists, and nothing's ever going to be perfect to us. There's always going to be one more thing you can do. And so I
Hmm.
really started, and I say this on the channel a lot, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
And I really kind of just embrace that, both with books as well as with the channel. It's not, I mean, I'm not saying put out hot garbage, but putting out good quality. But there's no sense in spending another year just to tweak those last few words.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing, and I've told authors this for years, is that one of the aspects of being an author or an artist or even an entrepreneur is that in the practice of doing the work, you are improving on that skill
Exactly.
set. So if you're waiting to be perfect, you're always going to fall short. Like we're always the harshest judge of our work because we
Exactly.
know that we can do better.
Right. Right.
So yeah, yeah. So okay, well, I think this is a good path to lead in now because you've got the books, you've got the YouTube channel. You may have other aspects of your business, and you can feel free to mention those. But one of the reasons we wanted to chat, you and I, is that you're an early customer of Author Anchor and the virtual assistant service that they offer. And this is
Hmm.
coming from the guys at BookBrush. How do first, I mean, how do VAs factor in to the way you do these two things and anything else you might do as part of your business?
Yeah, I do dabble a little bit in Amazon merch, though I haven't really done much with it in the last year or so. But it's funny because one of the things I love about Author Anchor just early on, like as far as like just finding your VA,
Yeah.
is everybody's different. They all bring their, they have training,
Hmm.
but they also bring their own experiences. And so, I had interviewed, two or three, and one of them was familiar with editing videos and things like that. So it was just a perfect match for me.
Right.
And so, yeah, so she does everything. You say I show up in your feed a lot. That's because before that, I wasn't really doing shorts. And now she'll take my content that I'm publishing on Friday and she breaks it up into shorts. She'll take some of my older videos and she'll put those into shorts and reels on Instagram and things like that. So yeah, she's just, she sends out my newsletters, which is another thing that I think every, not just author, but every business person should have to as a way to make whatever platform people are finding you on, make them take them from their customers to your customers.
Yeah.
And so she sends it, she sends out the newsletters. She does so much of my day-to-day business, the stuff that either I I didn't like doing
Yeah.
or I wasn't good at.
Right.
And have her focus on those and I could focus on what's moving the needle.
Yeah. That I love how you phrase that because that's exactly the point of having a VA, you
Right.
know, because that's just what I've been telling people. I just actually just wrote an article about this for somebody. One of the points I made was like, when do you decide that you get a VA? Well, one of the things I said was like, when you should decide not to do it is if you are hemming and hawing and fretting and stressing about how am I going to afford a VA? Because the whole point of bringing someone on board to help you is to increase your revenue earning potential,
Right.
not, put another financial
Right.
burden on you. So what was the
Exactly.
thing like the progression where you realized I need someone to help and it's time to bring someone in? When did you decide that?
It really came down to I've always been big on making like to-do lists for things to get done throughout the day. And when I started seeing more and more things getting from my to-do list not getting to done, as I say, and they
Yeah.
get put over to the next day and then the next day, because at the end of the day, I just sat down and was like, okay, we only have a finite amount of time.
Hmm.
And I've got a wife, I've got four adult kids, two grandkids. And so I wanted to be able to spend more time with them. I also have a full-time job. And so at the end of the day, I was like, I need help, and I'm someone who, I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but I have a certain ways that I like things done. And so it did take me probably a lot more time than it should have. Like I
Yeah.
probably should have done this 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
but it finally came to that tipping point where I just knew I wasn't able to take my business where I wanted it to go. I wasn't able to take it any further without somebody else helping.
Yeah. 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 I've been there, and I think a lot of people were there. So yeah, okay. Then when you found someone, and I know you went, and your incoming story for Author Anchor is going to be a little different than most people's because Author Anchor was still kind of establishing roots
Hmm.
when you came on board. But once you had somebody, uh, how long did it take you to kind of onboard and what were the biggest challenges there?
Well, see, that was another thing that was really great is because Moesha, the one that was kind of facilitating between me and the VA, she had a PowerPoint presentation and kind of told me like what to expect. Week one, we're going to do this. Week two, we're going to do this. So she's really
Oh yeah.
helping me visualize how things were going to go. And to be honest, things went way faster with this particular VA than even what was on the PowerPoint. It
Yeah.
really didn't take long for my VA Patricia for her to start. I showed her the last probably 2 or 3 months of my newsletters and how I word them and the kind of the playful nature that I do, and it didn't take long before she was able to do it. And then of course she would send them to me for me to approve. And after probably a month of her doing that, and we send out weekly newsletters, I was able to pretty much just trust her that if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, just just
Yeah.
go with it. And then
Yeah.
she, and every I would say probably at this point, and it's been about 5 months that we've been working together. And uh, all, pretty much every couple weeks, she'll reach out to me and say, "Is there anything else you need me to do?"
Mm.
I've used up, however many hours that we're going to do. Typically, it's 10 hours a week. And if she's like, "Do you have anything else?" And I'll just give her other things. It could be keyword research. It could be, I do have quite a few books under pen names, and so it might be researching my next book for one of those. And
Okay.
so she's always adding more things to her list, which means it's taking more things off mine.
Yeah. Okay. So that's you just gave a kind of an interesting little reveal there that she actually helps you in researching the next
Yeah.
book. And then that's like is she going out and kind of just doing keyword research to find out like what sorts of things people are searching for so you can build a puzzle book around that idea, or how's that work?
I mean, she'll do that, but most of the stuff she's doing is actually for my written content.
Oh, okay.
I have, like I said, I have other pen names where I write. Some of them are how-to video or how-to books,
Mm.
completely unrelated to authoring or anything like that. And so she'll do the research to see, everything from keyword research eh, towards the end, but before that, even seeing what areas are would be a good thing for me to look into, creating the next book for,
Yeah.
the next topic. So, yeah, she's done, she really, like I said, she's dug into to all those different aspects of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about, because this is increasingly the topic on everyone's lips, and I feel like I talk about it, 18 hours a day. Um, but how about AI? Do you have any issues with her leveraging AI tools for some of what she's doing for you?
I don't. I don't. I mean, especially as AI has improved, I found it more and more useful. I mean, sometimes with one of my um, pen names in particular, uh, she'll actually, because it's nonfiction, she'll use AI to just like outline the entire book,
Oh yeah,
and it just makes things that much easier.
yeah,
So, and as long as you're honest when you're uploading it to, places like KDP, as long as you're honest and know the difference between AI generated versus AI assisted, then you're not going to have a problem.
yeah,
People were early on were really scared. I was getting it on my channel all the time is, well, if you say it's AI generated, am I going to get, is it going to get blocked? I'm like, no, they're just trying to learn. They're trying to see
yeah,
what, yeah, and I truly believe, and I don't have any proof behind this except for my experience working with, publishing for almost a decade, is that my guess is that KDP and Amazon are going to at some point have a spot under the product details where it says AI generate, kind of like, might be,
yeah,
the text to speech or whatever, the
yeah,
little nuance, whether it has X-ray. I think it's just going to be more information that they're going to present to the end customer, not blocking. I said that your best chance of getting blocked is if you get caught lying.
yeah,
You didn't say it was, and it ended up being it. That's
yeah.
when you have to worry.
I've had conversations with a lot of experts in AI as it applies to publishing, and there's a lot of, I think, valid takes on this. One of them
Hmm.
is that the reason Amazon wants you to self-identify is because they're kind of gearing up for like the EU and other regions are kind of putting a
Right.
lot of restrictions on that
Hmm.
stuff. So I think that's probably accurate. But my take has always been, and I still think this is pretty accurate, that they see the opportunity to split, not necessarily split it out as in it doesn't mingle with other content, but to filter AI content so that those who absolutely will not want to look at it can
Right.
get past it, but then the people who don't care are willing to go check it out because maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's, there's a lot of
Right.
reasons why they might do that. So that's my
Yeah. And
take.
I
It's
think
probably wrong.
I agree. I agree. And I think they are also using that information to help their own AI learn,
Mm,
how to recognize, because it's not just asking you if it's AI generated, but it's asking you what you used, you know.
Yeah.
And so they're able to, you know, train their own AI to recognize, oh, this is the kind of AI that, you know, this particular
Yeah.
platform is spitting out. So
And the reason I even asked that, honestly, is because I've in my conversations with authors about VAs, some of them were like very concerned that, well, what's going to stop this person from just going and using AI to do the work? And I said, and I continually say, that would be amazing if that's what they did, because AI is a force multiplier. And so you're paying this VA for the hour, and that VA is able to get more out of that hour using
exactly.
these
Yeah.
tools. Why would you not want to do that?
Right. Right. I
So,
mean, because at the end of the day, if they're not giving you good quality,
right,
you're not gonna you're not gonna stick with them. You know, just like
right.
if you're hiring a freelancer off, you know, a
Off
freelance
Fiverr or
platform.
something. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. It's the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I mean, depending on what you're having them do, I mean,
Yeah,
I personally wouldn't have them, uh, whether they're using AI or not, I wouldn't have her write a book for me
right,
and then me just publish it. I mean,
right.
I would still, you know, read it myself and probably run it through, you know, plagiarism checker and things like that. But you know, mean, I wouldn't just be completely blind to it. But like you said, if they're utilizing any kind of, whether it's AI or you know, a software, whatever, if it's making them more efficient, they're able to help you out more.
Yeah, exactly right. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about sort of the meat and potatoes then, because when you are working with your VA, like, do you have like best practices and tips and things that you follow now that you might recommend to people for onboarding and working with a VA?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to onboarding, it really comes down to making sure that you set aside enough time to train them on what you want. It's just like if I'm going to hire somebody to ghostwrite a book for me, I need to tell them what I want. If I can't just give them a blanket statement, I need you to write me a newsletter,
Yeah,
and then get mad when I don't like the newsletter they come up with. You know, I mean, what you give them for guidance is what you're going to get back.
yeah,
And so it's going to take some time up front, you know, any kind of onboarding is,
yeah,
but just think of the time it's going to save you in the back end.
yeah,
And then as far as ongoing, it really just communication, you know, making sure that they're communicating with you you know, depending on how you have it set up, and there's a lot of flexibility as far as how you communicate with them.
hmm,
And you know, we don't have daily meetings or anything like that. She'll just message me through Google Chat when she's, you know, done with something, or if she has availability to do something else. You know, if she sees that she's going to be free the next day, is there anything else that you have for me? I'll just, you know, I started a notes on my phone of other things that I want to hand off to her.
yeah,
And so I may just, you know, give her some of those and tell her when you're at the point where you're going to, you know, look into one of these, let me know, and then I can kind of onboard you on that as well.
yeah. One of the things that stressed me out early on was that, like, and I've had others talk to me about this, is like, what am I even gonna hand off? Like, what if she does everything, runs out of work? What do I do? And one of the tricks I've been using is to kind of get her to come up with her own list. Like,
Right.
hey, take a look at, what we've done so far. What's some low-hanging fruit stuff that you see that we could, maybe do,
Yeah.
and have her present a list of like 10 ideas. Or hey, go use Chat GPT and come up with 10
Right.
ideas of things you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she'll do things like she'll send me a list at the beginning of the week. These are you know, these are some video shorts or reels, whatever topics that I think people would be interested in based on research she's done, whether it's with ChatGPT or other, you know, other creators in our niche, and she'll send me, you know, these are some images that would be good. And she really, the one of the biggest things she did, especially early on, was handling my my social media.
Mm.
Uh, I love YouTube.
Yeah.
I have a couple Facebook groups, but that was it. I mean, I was on everywhere, but I wasn't active everywhere.
Right.
And so she had, and then after her, I think it was 3 months, she created a presentation and showed me just the raw numbers of the difference between, you the how the social media, the different platforms, how my content had grown uh,
Yeah.
since she started helping out, and yeah, that was super helpful.
Yeah. That does sound helpful. I mean, it just kind of getting an overview of how you're performing on these platforms is useful to me.
Yeah,
Because right now it's like I'm basically shouting into the void most of the time because I don't follow up to see like how well a post did or anything.
right.
So even though
Yeah,
I've got like an automated social media tool, I don't check in on it.
yeah.
I don't see how any of it's doing. So,
Yeah. And
uh,
she even went as far as to when she did the presentation towards the end, she said overall findings, and it was that on TikTok and YouTube, that my shorts that are specifically business oriented,
mhm,
book oriented, about the industry and things like that, did really well. Whereas
yeah,
on the reels, it was more things that are specific to me. So
yeah,
like, my take on things, the reels that I did where I'm in my garden or whatever, those seem to do well. So she, broke down not just how overall the content was doing and the number of followers and everything else, but how the different types of content that the different platforms like.
yeah.
And so, like I said, she'll give me every week or every 2 weeks, depending on how far in advance we want to go. She'll give me like a list of like 20 topics, and she's
That's
like,
outstanding.
just these are ones that work. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's just great to have, because one of the things I dislike the most about creating the videos is coming up with ideas,
right.
you know? And
Yeah,
so having somebody that has already done that work for me, and
yeah,
again, I don't care whether she used chat or whatever to do it. If there's, and if there's a topic that I don't think is relevant to me, then obviously I won't cover that. But majority of them have been pretty spot on,
hmm,
and either topics that I've already thought about doing anyway, or ones that I know I can actually give some relevant information for that and make it helpful.
yeah. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up, but one of the things I wanted to ask you was, in this process of finding and working with a VA, and over the time that you've done it now, have you learned anything surprising about, not just the VA stuff, but maybe about your own processes and the way you do things? Is anything surprising come up out of this?
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of one of the biggest ones is that just because I was doing something consistently doesn't mean I was doing it the best way.
Mm,
And whether it's the way I worded things, or even just keywords for like videos and things like that, just seeing a different perspective, somebody else's
yeah,
ideas of how to do it. And sometimes, I would revert back to my way, but a lot of times, having a fresh set of eyes definitely helped, and was like, okay, just because I've been doing it this way for the last 5 years doesn't mean that it's the best.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good one. That's a good takeaway. All right. Well, look, man, I appreciate that you came on, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community out there with Keith Wheeler Books on YouTube too, man. That's you're doing good work, and
I appreciate it. Thank you.
you're really I like what you're presenting. A lot of what you talk about is applicable, even if you do something other than the low content or other than children's books. I mean, a lot of that stuff is useful. So I do recommend people go check you out. Where else can people find you besides YouTube?
I'm pretty much now I'm on every pretty much every platform. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. All those fun ones, and it's K Wheeler Books on all those platforms. So
Okay. All right. Well, then we're gonna wrap up. Thanks for being on, man. I
thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. All right, everybody else, thank you for tuning in and being a part of the Wordslinger podcast from your end of the speaker or hopefully screen soon. I'm hoping that the YouTube channel starts to grow a little. So stick around. We're going to have a note at the end, of course, as always, and I will see you over there. You know, I've always believed life's too short for boring stories. So I write the kind of books I'd want to read. Action-packed, fast-paced fiction. Adventure stories with characters you'll wish you could hang out with. And twists you'll never see coming. From ancient mysteries to modern-day thrills, my books take you on a wild ride. And trust me, I've got plenty of rides to choose from. So if you're ready to escape into a world of danger, discovery, and intrigue, it's here waiting. Find your adventure at kevintumlinson.com/books. Not responsible for sleepless nights. Well, here we are at the note at the end. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Keith Wheeler. I love connecting with people who do the same sort of stuff I do, you know? That's one of the reasons I go to author conferences, is because, not only, I tend to work them, I tend to be a speaker, or I tend to, be there for some official purpose or some official capacity, which is a little too bad because I actually like just kind of being there as Kevin Tumlinson, the author sometimes. It's been a very long time. In fact, I can't even remember the last time that I attended a conference or any sort of event and it was just me as an author. I've been talking about this a little lately. There was a conference lately. I forget what it was called, but it was like the $1 Million Author Conference or something like that. And only around 40 people showed up, and 30 some odd of those were the authors who paid a lot of money to fly in, to book a booth, to send inventory, to get hotel rooms. So that was a disaster. There was no promotion ahead of time. They didn't have a schedule set up. They didn't have guests booked, slotted in to do talks, any of that. No readers knew about this thing. So it was a huge waste of money for the event. It was like a $250 ticket to get into the event as well. They had a black tie event that when the authors showed up, those that paid for this and showed up, it was in this like concrete bunker of a room with no decoration, no food, no drinks. Just disaster. So I say that, I talk about that because that's not the first time that sort of thing has happened. There was something happened in I think Denver not too long ago, a year or so ago, where poor planning meant that there were readers in line to get into this like reader-oriented event, and it got the lights get shut off, and they get hustled out before anybody even got in there. So the authors didn't get to meet these readers, didn't get to sell their wares, didn't get to do any of that. Organizing a conference is a lot of work. You can ask my friends Tadra Candle and Mel Jolly, who are the geniuses behind organizing events like NINC and Writer MBA, which is no more. Monica and Russell have announced that they're not doing that anymore. I don't know if that also includes the conference, but they're shutting down the Writer MBA business. So it's just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears with not a lot of reward. You don't make a lot of money on organizing these things. I had a conversation with JD and Christine and Jenna on the Writers Inc. podcast today. It's like, and I've had a conversation recently with Roland Denzel, my good friend, about like what I would like to attend and organize. And I don't want to do a writers conference. I would much rather do sort of a meetup, sort of a writers meetup where we all just agree we're going to be in a certain place and we all pay our own way, and we We pay for our hotel or whatever, and we all get together and we can do some writing while we're there, and then we can do some hanging out while we're there. We sit around a campfire or something, just that's what I want, I realized. And they made a point that like, well, that's not reader facing, so that you wouldn't meet new readers that way. But I tend to think of writers conferences as being, most of the ones that I attend don't have a reader facing side. Now, Author Nation, that thing is massive, and they Joe and his team have put a ton of work. Joe Solari and his group have put a ton of work into building out that reader event, and that's happening again this year in November, and they're rebranding that as Reader Nation, and they do a fantastic job promoting it, building up to it. Organizing it, executing it, all of it. They do an outstanding job. Could not possibly have done better. So there's that. Because I'm connected to all these things on both sides of that fence, I just know how much work it takes, and it's just not worth it to me. I just have no interest in organizing a conference. But I am considering doing a sort of a writer's retreat, and I might take on some of the responsibility of organizing that. And what I would probably do is use my virtual assistant to help in organizing that, because I am notoriously averse to detail. I am not a detail-oriented person, and I just don't want to spend the time tracking that stuff. Now, my wife, Kara, actually, that's what I should do, is just hand it to her. I could hand it to her, and 6 months later, we'd have the most profoundly organized writers meetup of all time, a writer's retreat for the record books. But anyway, maybe that's what I'll do. If you're interested in that, let me know. Send me a comment, especially if you're on YouTube. We talked a little bit about the YouTube channel for the Wordslinger podcast is just not really there. There's a couple hundred people subscribed on YouTube. It's not growing very fast, and there's probably a million reasons why. The podcast continues to grow and do well in the audio format. Maybe it's just the kind of thing that people just prefer to listen to. I don't know. I understand though. But if you are listening, it would help a lot if you went and subscribed on YouTube. Just search for Wordslinger Podcast. I think it's youtube.com/Wordslinger Podcast, I believe is the URL. Let me check that before we get too far, because it seems like I can't. Why can't I ever remember that? So let's see. Wordslinger Podcast. Got to spell it right. And let's see. That is it. So youtube.com/Wordslinger Podcast. But an easier way is if you go to wordslingerpodcast.com, you can actually find a link to YouTube on that page as well. Usually on each episode, there's a YouTube video. If you click on the video, it'll take you to the YouTube page. You can subscribe from there. If you would do that, it would be very helpful to me. If you don't, it's not a big deal. I understand. It is kind of a goal of mine to grow this thing, the YouTube side of it. But I can't be too serious about it because I don't really do much other than just periodically pitch it. So if you got some suggestions, let me know. But for those of you who only tune in via the audio feed, I mean, God bless you. I'm glad you're here. Because otherwise I'm just talking to myself. So, but if you have thought about some sort of writer's retreat, maybe you have one. If you have one, share that with me too. But what would you think of me putting one together and finding a cool spot somewhere? Maybe we would do one in Austin, but I also wouldn't mind organizing something in some other place, especially maybe someplace I've never been that has some. And my criteria for things like this is I want a couple of things. I want some natural beauty, and or I want some convenience when it comes to like local restaurants, coffee shops, things like that. The the writing aspect of this, I mean, you need some quiet time, right? But I like to write in like cafes and coffee shops and bookstores and hotel lobbies and things like that. So I'm pretty versatile. I also like writing from cabins and in the passenger seat of a travel van, if you will. So I'm versatile. But anyway, if you got ideas, if you've thought about it, if you would be interested in it, feel free to let me know. I'm kind of kicking it around. Who knows what'll come of that. We talked in this episode about virtual assistants, and there's a big reason for that because I am, I disclosed this in the interview, but I am the chief brand officer for Author Anchor, which was founded by the BookBrush team. And it's one of those things like I don't get involved in things unless I think they have the potential to really bless the writing community. And if I don't feel like that potential is there, I will leave. Even if I'm sacrificing maybe some bigger opportunity. I did that more than a year ago now when I left Book Sweeps. It's not that I don't see that as being maybe useful to the author community. I just didn't see how me being there was going to add to that. Because the ideas that I had, the plans that I had, I think I could have forced my will upon it, but it was clear that the sort of existing management had different ideas and different goals, and so there was a conflict, and it wasn't like a bitter conflict. There was no anger, there was no no screaming matches or anything like that, but it just became more and more obvious that our plans didn't mesh, and so I stepped down as the CEO of that company after a very short period. I mean, I started in October and I left in the following March, so not very long at all. And no regrets either way. No regrets about stepping up, and no regrets about stepping down. That's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you got to make some decisions, and one of the things I try to avoid is the whole sunk cost fallacy. In that, you keep holding on to something because, well, I've invested time, I've invested money, I've invested effort, my reputation is tied to this. That's not good enough. If that's all you got, then and the rest is misery, or the rest is detrimental to you or your plans or to the people you're trying to serve, then you need to throw that whole concept of sunk cost out the window and move along, because you're not doing anybody any favors by sticking to it or by holding on to it. There are things. I'm a bad example of this, but like I've got tons of stuff. I own tons of stuff. If you look behind me on YouTube, you can see a lot of my books. It's not even a third of the books I own. You can see the typewriters, and you can see, I own a lot of stuff. And the closet that's back there is full of a lot more stuff. And then I live in a massive house that's full of even more stuff. Do I need all that stuff? No. But a lot of it I hold on to because, well, I invested in this. I paid money for this. I can't just give this away. I can't just throw this out. I couldn't get as much as I paid for it if I sold it. That's a ridiculous concept. So one of the things Kara and I are working on over the next year is reducing our footprint, minimizing as much as possible. A magical thing does happen when you do this, because I have done this in certain aspects of my life and career. But when you are willing to reduce that footprint, to go a little more minimalist rather, a magical thing happens. You suddenly open up space and energy for the next thing. It's like I can be a little on the woo side when it comes to spirituality and law of attraction and things like that. But I think there is actually something very, very much to the idea that, if you're surrounding yourself in a bunch of stuff, that's where your energy is. It's biblical. It's scriptural, for me. Where your treasure is, there your heart is also. That's the actual concept. Let's get past the idea of Christianity or God or anything that you may or may not believe in, and get to that concept. That concept is true no matter what. And it is that Kara and I make a lot of our life decisions based on all this stuff we own. Well, we can't just pick up and go. Who would take care of the house? Who would take care of the yard? Who would take care of our stuff? What if there was a fire? What if someone breaks in? So a lot of our life decisions end up rotating around accommodating all these things that we have accumulated over the course of our lives. So in part, one of the reasons we want to kind of revisit and sort of minimalize, and don't expect my backdrop to just go to bare walls anytime soon. But I mean, the idea is like, how much do we actually need to hold on to? If you're holding on to something because it brings you some joy, that is one thing. If you're holding on to it because, hey, I spent $20 on this one time when I was 25 years old and I just can't bear to part with it because I don't want to waste that money. Well, now you're kind of towing the waters of a problem. So it's worth reconsidering. In terms of like VAs and things like that, there's a similar concept happening. Is like you want to be able to hand over the things that are weighing you down in your work and career. Now, no matter what your field is, if you are an author, and chances are if you're watching this show, you are, or listening to this show, but you could be an artist, you could be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people who tune in. There are going to be things that are part of your career that are they're just dead weight for you. But you sort of owe it to someone else at a certain point to hand that off. You owe it for writers, let's just talk to writers. For writers, you owe it to your readers to hand it off, because then it means you're freed up to do more writing, which is the thing you got started to do for doing this in the first place, right? You also owe it to that person who takes the task on, because now you're giving them an opportunity to earn for their own living. Now, it may not be something you can do. And as I said in this interview, if the question is, how am I going to afford this? How am I going to manage to swing this financially? Then it's the wrong time to get a VA. But if the question is, how can I continue to raise my revenue if I can't hand some of this stuff off? That's where you want to start looking for a VA. If I'm constantly having to deal with my email, or constantly having to deal with social media, or constantly having to deal with these little marketing tasks, and it's taking me away from the writing, and I have to write or I'm not producing books. If I'm not producing books, I'm not serving my reader, I'm not making my revenue. If I had more time, I could make even more revenue. That's when you need the assistance. So for that, Author Anchor is something I would recommend, even if I weren't affiliated with them. They brought me on board because I was excited about the concept. I was helping them with just sort of, in a kind of consulting role, I was kind of helping them with some of this. So I recommend it. It's the easiest way for you to find an affordable VA to help you in your author business. If in whatever your business, actually, we're branching out. We're serving anyone who needs assistance. We're your go-to source. We'll help you find vetted people. We've done background checks and checks on these people to make sure that their skill levels are up to par, their language levels are up to par. Everything is weighed and considered. And if someone's not working out, we are the first to let them go. So, and if you have issues, you talk to us and then we deal with it. So it's the best possible way to do this. Because I've used VAs in the past and it was never this easy. Never. So, that said, we do have that webinar, which you'll find the link in the show notes. It is a Zoom webinar. It's a ghastly mouthful of a URL, or I would read it off to you, or even try to put it on the screen. But there's no point, because you're going to want to click on this. You're going to want to register. If you do it, it's happening on May 21st, 2025. It's going from 8 a.m. It looks like we've got several here. 8 a.m., 10 a.m. Wait, no, sorry. Let me back that up. We've got one on May 21st, 2025. That's a Wednesday 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, and 4 p.m. GMT. So, Greenwich Mean Time, right? Yeah, okay. So, check that out. I'm in Central, so that's 10 a.m. for me. You can go to that link and you can enter your name and your email address to sign up. You'll get a little registration link. It'll go on your calendar and you can tune in for that and learn more about VAs, meet some of the VAs. I've done one of these before. Since joining, this is the second one they've had since I've come on board. And it was a great experience to do little presentations. Some of the VAs are amazing. Like, they've got skills. I'm like, wow, really? And they go fast, by the way. Like, as soon as someone, is introduced to one of these hotshot VAs who knows how to do, like, Shopify stores or Kickstarters or whatever, like, everybody wants that VA. So, go and find your help. So anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Keith. I hope you do tune in for the webinar, and I hope that you find the help you need in this. You deserve it. This is meant for you. This is going to improve your career. Like I said, the caveat is it may not be for you. Even if you can't afford it, it might not be for you. You're going to have to decide, is this something that adds to my business? Does it help me earn more revenue, or does it relieve stress so that I can do the work that I do with more joy? There's a lot of reasons why you might want to bring someone on board, and a lot of reasons why you might consider just, not putting yourself through it. Because it's not like it's instantly a cure for everything you need done. You do need to remember, you can't just hand off like every single thing you have. You're going to start off with one or two tasks and just kind of build from there. And I will say, like, the first couple of weeks that I start working with any new VA, it's like more work for me. It's more stress for me for a brief time, but that's just the onboarding process. And I'm actually starting to figure some things out that makes that easier, which I'm trying to pass on to you through the things that I'm creating. And you'll learn some of that, I think, in this webinar. So that said, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you, wherever you are consuming the podcast, you are subscribed, that you are sharing. Like, share, subscribe on YouTube. All those things are important. And we're trying to get the message out far and wide, not just about Author Anchor and VAs and any of that, but, the Wordslinger podcast is aimed at helping you, in myriad ways. So I just want to make sure that I'm reaching as many people with the message as possible. So you going out and sharing it is very helpful to me. So thank you for that. Beyond that, I hope you had a great time, and I hope you tune in next time. And if so, I'll see you then.